I was 15 years old during the weekend in June, when everything would change. My mother had decided to skip town to visit her distant family, as she felt that she had earned a break. Nothing unusual about the decision to just up and leave, as she often goes to visit the other side, as she calls it. She'd either visit her parents, a part of the family that I actually enjoy seeing, who occupy a modest cottage up in the hills of some English countryside, or, if she was feeling tolerant, she would make the lengthy trip to see her annoying, yuppie cousins, living it up in their seemingly never-ending Spanish property. That's where she was going this time. I never felt the need to put myself through listening to their constant loudmouth whining of their quest for importance, but given the choice now, I would have sat through a week of their intolerable rambling, if I could have known what that weekend had planned for me. I was awakened by my mom on the Friday morning. She'd got me the day off school. I was told that she'd be back on Monday morning, to reassure my teachers that it was nothing more than a 3-day stomach bug. I carried her back to the car, gave her a kiss on the cheek, waved her goodbye, and just like that, she was gone. I wandered into the kitchen to make my breakfast, all the while thinking how excited I'd got the first time my mom had trusted me to stay at home on my own. It was different now, nearing trivial. Almost the entirety of that first day consisted of me lazing about. I listened to my music, played some games, watched a movie, all of the usual things a boring teenager would do. Then I fell asleep. After what I think was about 2 hours of sleep, I was woken in the evening by a knock. I rose from the couch like a zombie, still sleepy and achy from the awkward position that I'd somehow let my limbs rest in. I'd initially planned to ignore the knock at the door, but the thought of it being a friend made me want to answer. Having company always made the weekend go faster. I clenched the door handle with a faint smile on my face, with my eyes still half closed, and that strange taste in my mouth that I get after a sleep. I opened the door. My eyes soon widened when I realized what I was looking at. A tall, bony-looking old man was standing in my doorway. He was dressed in a black suit and tie, with an aging bowler hat placed on top of his scraggly gray hair. His white shirt was stained with a yellow and brown tint that I could only guess was coffee, and the shoes that he was wearing were very well kept, very shiny, so much so that I could see my reflection in them. He began to speak. His words were hushed, maybe even hissed in a childlike sort of tone, but I couldn't focus. I knew he was speaking, but I couldn't concentrate on the words he was saying. Not while I was looking at his face and staring into his eyes. His aged complexion was taut, wrinkled, and very pale, almost like a hazy shade of silver, but the edges of his eyes were completely black. What looked like smeared charcoal surrounding his vision only highlighted the depth of his gaze. There was nothing human about them. They seemed hollow, lifeless. The fear that gripped me when he stared straight through me was like nothing that I'd ever felt before. I took a deep breath and finally mumbled a word. "Hello," I said. He smiled, a disgruntled plight to infect my dreams. It seemed to extend upward towards his ears, as if there was nothing stopping it. His mouth was packed with razor-sharp, dirty black teeth. Every once in a while, his black tongue would swipe the surface of his upper deck in a slurp. With his head tilted slightly to the left, he crooned softly.
"Hello there, child. I'm here to offer you something important. Something you might need. I'm a salesman, you see. Just a salesman. Please, all I need is a moment of your time in exchange for some peace of mind. Are you interested?"
I couldn't move. I could hardly breathe. I felt frozen. Terror had encompassed me. I finally muttered a sentence. I can't. I have to go. It's too much. I'm sorry." The door slammed behind me and I could breathe again. I could think. I slouched down to the ground, trying to process what I had just witnessed, when out of nowhere a thud made itself known. I looked up, with my mouth ajar and eyes darting about. Then I slowly stood. Making my way into the kitchen, I could hear a gentle humming. It was a happy kind of tune, but the unknown source made me shiver. My stomach dropped as I turned the corner. He was there, humming that tune, smiling that smile as he sat at my table, just staring at me. I backed away towards the front door, where I was welcomed by a shadow. That can't be him, I thought to myself. I began to tear up. I couldn't help it. I headed straight upstairs, past my bedroom, past my mom's room, and vanished into the bathroom. I could hear him. He was singing now, right outside the door. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. Then it hit me. My only choice. I couldn't believe I was actually contemplating climbing out of the second floor window. But I had to. The shadow passing by through the light on the other side of the door was forcing me to do it. I opened the bathroom window and stared outside. But then I stopped. There he was, standing on the edge of my garden, waving at me, and slowly drifting down the road, taking his song with him, and slowly fading into the distance. That night I slept in the bathroom, with the door and window locked. I set up a bed using a bunch of towels. I just couldn't bring myself to leave until daylight emerged. The next day finally arrived, after what seemed to be the longest night of my life. And I had to get out of the house. I went over to stay at my friend's house for the day. Adam was his name, a small skinny guy who I'd known all my life. I thought that he could help me forget about what happened. It's a strange feeling you get when something so frightening happens to you, but it seems so unrealistic. You begin to doubt yourself. It's almost as if you have two minds. But I knew in my heart that it was real. If I didn't believe after the first meeting with the salesman, it would definitely be forever etched in my mind after the weekend was over. Later that night, I was told that I couldn't stay at Adam's house, as his family had to get up for church in the morning. I begged and pleaded with him to let me stay, but his stubborn mother wasn't having none of it, and sent me on my way. I only lived 3 streets from where his house was, so it wasn't much of a walk. But I still had to walk back in the dark of night, and I wasn't looking forward to it at all. That face kept creeping into my mind. The fact that someone had been able to scare me out of my own home was sickening. And that damn song he kept humming. I turned the corner and I could hear it. The tune, the voice, he was there. I looked down the road expecting it to be empty. Just my mind playing tricks on me, I thought. But there he was, standing under the streetlight, staring at me, smiling. He began to walk towards me, his hum turning into a song, singing louder and louder as he began to run at me. I had to run. I sprinted in the other direction as fast as I could. I could hear his footsteps behind me. How was he so fast? My frazzled mind wondered. I had to get back to Adam's house. I had to. I turned the corner and banged on Adam's door frantically. "Open the door! Open the door!" I shouted. His mother answered, looking terrified, questioning what had happened to me. I stumbled into their house and scurried backwards, only to look outside and realize that he was gone. Was it my imagination? It couldn't have been. There was nothing there. Nothing! Nothing except for an old bowler hat on the ground. Needless to say, she let me stay at the house that night because, as she put it, I wasn't fit to stay on my own. I woke the next morning feeling like a mess and looking even worse. But at least the sun was out. I had to get back home. I hadn't been there in a whole day, and I had to make sure everything was okay. I thanked Adam and apologized to his mom. Then I was off on my way. I stood at my front door, took a deep breath, and gripped the handle. Then I heard a bang. Then another, and another. I jumped back from the door in pure fear. I couldn't believe it was him again. How was he doing this? Just as I had gathered the courage to turn the handle and go inside, my mom opened the door for me. I'd never been so happy to see her in my entire life. I hugged her and told her never to leave me on my own again. After that, we went inside and sat together all day. It was something we hadn't done since I was a young boy. And everything felt safe again. She showed me her new white dress that she had bought while she was away. She told me all about her visit to her annoying cousins and spoke very highly of her weekend. But I couldn't do the same. That afternoon, I told her everything that had happened. She listened intently and couldn't believe that something so horrible had happened to me. She felt so guilty. She apologized over and over, and told me that we would go to the police station the next day. But right now it could wait, and we had to get ready for dinner. I was confused that she had said that, but I suppose I was safe with her. An hour or so later, we settled down for a meal. I told her all about school. I explained to her how much better I had gotten at guitar. Updated her on my love life, and she just sat there and listened, smiling as I ate my meal. She stared at me, and I felt uneasy. Her smile slowly got bigger and bigger. All the while, her new white dress slowly melted into a black suit. She hissed.
Do you see how easy it is to give someone some of your time?
At that moment, he stood right in front of me. I cried out, "I knew it wasn't over! What do you want? Why me? Why my mother?"
You know why I chose you, child. You never listened. I told you it could have been something that you might need. I told you it was important, but you ignored me. You didn't have the time, your precious time. The only way I could get you to listen was by using the one person that you trust, that you listen to. And let's just say that I'd like to be somebody else, if only for a while.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll listen now.
It's too late for that. It's too late. It's a shame too, child, because it really could have saved your life.
Then that was it. It was over. Done. So, why am I telling you all of this? Well, you've given me some of your time, so here is your supposed peace of mind. I like to be somebody else.
If only for a while.